Welcome back, students of the survival arts, to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into mastering the elemental affinities that are, quite literally, necessary for your survival. You know, whether we realize it or not, the forces of nature are constantly dictating the terms of our existence. They impose these invisible boundaries on what we can and absolutely cannot endure. So today we're taking a deep dive into arguably the most vital, versatile, and, let's be honest, mysterious element of them all: water. We're going to decode its secrets, not just as something you drink when you're thirsty, but as a hardcore strategic asset for navigation, concealment, medicine, and even combat. Here's our curriculum for the day. We'll start big with Earth's natural immune system, then zoom in on locating hidden water sources, the art of purification, combat and healing applications, how water acts as a light magnifier, and finally, the incredible flexibility of river networks. Let's get to it. Before we get into the weeds, I want to emphasize that understanding these elements isn't just some academic exercise. It's an absolute prerequisite for staying alive. As our source material points out, every single human being depends entirely on the four basic elements to sustain their biological functions. Even if you never set foot on a battlefield or you never use water in an offensive scenario, mastering its properties is exactly how you navigate brutal terrain, heal grievous wounds, and survive in the absolute most hostile environments imaginable. Real mastery of survival, it starts with mastering your environments.
Okay, moving into Section 1, Earth's natural immune system.
So on Earth, water exists in three distinct states, right? Solid, liquid, and gas. It's the constant temperature variations that drive these three states, and that rhythmic shifting is exactly what prevents global environmental suffocation. Just imagine the apocalyptic alternatives for a second. If all the water on Earth were trapped purely in a liquid state, our entire planet would be flooded. Zero solid ground for land-based life to flourish. What if it were all frozen solid? Well, every inch of topsoil would be sealed beneath an impenetrable sheet of ice. Absolutely no plant life could take root. And if it were entirely atmospheric gas, that would mean the baseline temperature of the Earth was just way too high to support any biological life at all. So this constant shifting between polar ice, liquid oceans, and atmospheric vapor is what keeps our habitable land elevated, regulates our weather, and ensures Earth's temperatures stay perfectly survivable. And here's where it gets really fascinating. Plants and water bodies actually work together in a massive symbiotic relationship. They act exactly like a planetary immune system to fight off the Earth's fever, what we know as global warming. Deep-rooted plants pull up hidden subterranean water, and as a byproduct of photosynthesis, they release life-giving oxygen. That oxygen then rises up, reacts with hydrogen, and literally thickens the ozone layer, creating a critical shield that deflects harmful ultraviolet rays. Meanwhile, down on the ground, massive tree canopies physically shade our rivers and streams so they don't just rapidly evaporate under the glaring sun. Together, these vast forests and deep oceans regulate the entire global rain cycle and keep the Earth's core temperature perfectly balanced. Let's transition down to practical survival in Section 2, locating hidden water sources. Now, if you ever find yourself stranded in arid lands, theory goes straight out the window. Observation is what saves you. Reading nature's subtle cues is Survival 101. First, you've got to follow the signs of life. Scan the horizon for fresh, vibrant green plants. That's a dead giveaway for hidden moisture in the soil, especially compared to dying brown foliage. Second, look to the sky. Track flocks of birds. Birds use isolated water sources as critical transit points to feed and rehydrate during long migrations. If you see them consistently flying in one specific direction over a desert, follow them. Third rule, always source your water upstream. Rivers pick up sediment and impurities as they flow down to the sea, so getting closer to the mountain spring guarantees a purer supply. And finally, some survivalists still swear by ancient, highly specialized methods like dowsing. This is where a practitioner feels a literal, physical tug on special converging rods to locate underground springs. Legends even say wild elephants use a similar sensory technique with their massive tusks to find water during brutal droughts. But what about absolute extremes? When there isn't a river or oasis anywhere in sight? Well, you can actually extract moisture straight from damp earth or atmospheric vapor if you master a precise vaporization and condensation sequence. Here's how it works. You harvest clumps of moist dirt into a sealed container and apply a steady heat source. As the temperature rises, the hidden moisture inside the soil vaporizes, leaving just dry, cracked earth behind. Then you carefully redirect that captured vapor through a tube into a second, much cooler container. That sudden drop in temperature forces the vapor to condense back into pure, drinkable liquid. It's a next-level survival technique, using water's predictable reactions to extreme heat and cold to literally manufacture hydration out of thin air.
Finding water is great, but we have to make it safe. Section 3, the art of purification.
Drinking tainted water in the wild is a massive liability. It can become fatal incredibly fast. So think of filtration like a fisherman's net. A net catches the big, substantial fish while letting the ocean flow right through the gaps. Filtration works the exact same way. It uses variations in mass and molecular size to separate dangerous solid impurities from fluid water. Because water is highly fluid and has a less compact molecular structure, it easily slips through a tightly woven mesh or a layer of sand. But those dangerous solid objects, parasites, and debris, they possess a much more rigid structure, so they get safely trapped behind the barrier.
Beyond basic filtration, a true survivalist must understand sedimentation and distillation. Sedimentation is beautifully simple. It relies on pure, undisturbed stillness. If you leave muddy water completely still in a container, gravity takes over. The heavy, dense objects sink straight to the bottom, while lighter debris floats to the top. That leaves the middle layer remarkably pure. Distillation, on the other hand, deals with a much trickier problem, like invisible gases or toxic liquids mixed directly into the water. This relies on the fact that every single element has a unique evaporation threshold. By applying a controlled fire, you can vaporize the water precisely at its boiling point. The heavier toxic impurities, which have higher boiling points, get left behind the pot. You then capture and cool that pure water vapor in a separate vessel.
Let's shift gears a bit. Section 4. Combat, healing, and stasis. I want you to think about this for a moment. Beyond basic hydration and purification, how can the raw, kinetic, physical force of water keep you alive against an active adversary? Water isn't just a passive resource to drink. When you harness it correctly, it dictates the entire flow of a battlefield. Seriously, water is a formidable tactical tool. Highly concentrated, high-pressure liquid strikes can easily knock an aggressive opponent completely off their feet just through sheer kinetic force. Or by rapidly manipulating the temperature to generate vapor, you can blanket a battlefield in thick mist and dense fog. This creates unparalleled tactical concealment. It actively blinds adversaries and injects this critical element of mystery and confusion into an ambush. And what if you force the temperature down to freezing? You create ice, enforcing a brutal state of environmental stasis. Freezing a perimeter gives you zero friction surfaces that completely restrict human motion. Without specialized tools like spiked cleats or skis, an enemy force is literally paralyzed. I mean, even birds lose their innate ability to fly if their wings get heavily soaked in freezing rain. Water can actively and aggressively shut down natural motion. Now, transitioning from combat to recovery, water serves as the ultimate universal solvent. It can literally pull venom, sickness, and aggressive toxins right out of the human body through the process of osmosis. By drawing impurities out through the pores, water acts as the foundational base for almost all medicinal potions, salves, and restorative foods. It just has this innate, deep-level refining and purifying property that targets cellular corruption. What's truly remarkable here is how altering the ambient temperature turns water into a highly versatile medical tool. We're talking about creating specialized healing atmospheres. Immersing a patient in a frigid, icy atmosphere triggers an immediate tranquilizing effect, rapidly bringing down dangerous core temperatures and relieving the life-threatening symptoms of a severe fever. Moving to a cool, damp atmosphere promotes deep regenerative rest. This specific climate is absolutely necessary for generating new cells and literally restoring a survivor's shattered mental fortitude after a grueling ordeal. Conversely, exposing a patient to a warm, highly humid atmosphere triggers a massive physiological energy release. It drastically reduces muscular stress, opens up the respiratory system, and massively amplifies physical mobility. By simply manipulating the air and water around a subject, you can bring vital tranquility to an otherwise explosive physiological crisis. Now for something totally mind-bending. Section 5, Water as a Light Magnifier. Water doesn't just shape the physical earth, it actually bends our very perception of reality. When incoming light interacts with a bright reflective water surface, the water acts as a brilliant conservation mechanism. It reflects the intense light away, forming a mirror-like shield. This actively prevents the water body from absorbing excess heat energy and vaporizing into the atmosphere. Anyone looking down at this bright surface just sees a self-portrait, their own reflection glaring back. But the moment you cast a shadow over that same water,
darkening the surface, the physics shift entirely. The dark surface stops reflecting and begins absorbing the ambient energy. This allows light to pierce the barrier, granting your vision the ability to penetrate the water and reveal the hidden murky depths below. Furthermore, water is one of the very few elements in nature that can actively bend and manipulate light rays. This is a highly complex optical process known as refraction. Because liquid water is significantly more compact and dense than the air above it, it aggressively bends the light passing through it. It's an optical illusion that makes deep rivers and lakes appear dangerously shallower than they actually are. More importantly for survival, by bending light entirely away from a specific object, water can render that object completely invisible to the naked eye. On the offensive side, a skilled survivalist can use water contained in a curved vessel to magnify hidden microscopic details or even focus sunlight into highly concentrated searing beams capable of starting a fire from scratch. Let's move to our final topic today. Section 6, Flexibility of River Networks.
Nature's immense, uncompromising flexibility is perfectly demonstrated by our sprawling river networks. When a massively strong, rushing river hits an unyielding obstruction, like an elevated highland or a dense mountain of rock, it doesn't just give up, stop, and form a stagnant, dying lake. No, if its underlying flow and momentum are powerful enough, it bends. It shatters its own singular path and splits into dozens of complex tributaries, each furiously carving a brand new, unique route toward the sea. This represents deep environmental multiplication and genealogy. It's much like a thriving family tree or an enduring bloodline originating from one powerful parent source. And as that water flows over decades and centuries, it relentlessly weathers away loose earth, carving smooth pebbles from jagged stone and slicing grand canyons straight into the crust of the earth. It is the constant, agonizingly slow refinement of the planet. It proves that given enough time and sheer flexibility, water exerts total, undisputed dominance over any landscape.
We've learned throughout this session that elemental waves are essentially an imprint. They're a lingering after effect that allows an observant survivalist to sense powerful phenomena, like shifting heat, impending storms, or aggressive wind, that are ordinarily completely invisible to the naked eye. If you study the currents of water closely enough, you learn to read these atmospheric transitions perfectly, knowing exactly when ice will freeze or when vapor will rise. So, as we conclude this explainer, I want to leave you with a vital introspective thought. If you can predict a rushing wave's transition, and you can read the invisible, life-saving cues of nature perfectly, what other powerful, unseen forces inside your own mind and body are just waiting for you to master them? Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep studying the elements, stay relentlessly focused, and I'll see you in the next one.